Hello, everyone. Time to settle in for another episode of the Out of Spec podcast. Sit down, stand up, start walking, start running, washing those dishes, driving your car. That reminds me, I kind of want to know what y'all are doing when you tune in. Is it in the morning? Is it right when these come out? Let me know what you do while you listen to podcasts. Today, I am excited to talk about an announcement from last month about Mercedes Benz Hypercharging, which is their North American charging network, $1 billion dedicated to building this out, working with Alpitronic America as the first charging network in the US to deploy Alpitronic's Hypercharger 400, that's 400 kilowatts, at scale with units available to customers when? Oh, right now, Q3 2024. Can't wait to see these in the ground. I've actually interacted and charged with one of these before at a pilot spot at a Circle K in Rock Springs, South Carolina. And today I get to talk to no other than the CEO of Alpitronic America's Mike Doucleff. It was absolutely a pleasure to speak with him. He's very knowledgeable. He's come to the US and he's leading this team, and I'm really excited to see what they do. I think their design and their approaches in general what we need in the EV industry. And I've been wondering who they would partner with first, who would be their big partner. And I was also curious because Mercedes Benz started out with the ChargePoint partnership, what else they would experiment with. Because if I talk to any CPO or any designer, manufacturer, when it comes to EV charging, folks are open to trying and seeing what works best. So before we get into the conversation with Mike, I'm going to give you just a few more details about this agreement, this partnership, and then we'll bring him to the stage to tell us everything that he knows to a degree. It was great to have him on. All right, let's plug in. This episode is made possible by the support we get from Fort Collins Kia. If you are in the market for any electric Kia, not only do they never add market adjustments, they will deliver your car to you anywhere in the 48 contiguous states for out-of-spec viewers. More information in the link in the show notes. Okay, folks, like I said, Mercedes Benz Hypercharging, which is the name of their North American charging network, has partnered with Alpitronic Americas, and they are going to deploy their Made in America hardware. That is specific here. Alpitronic is fully in the US. They have a big footprint over in Europe, where Kyle has charged there before. I mean, many people have charged there. They have tons of data points, as Mike will tell us, but now they are truly coming to America. Mike talks more about the decision to move into this market at this point, and I hope that they do launch these at scale. They say that they're going to start this Q3 2024. That is technically right now, July 2024. And these Hyperchargers, Hypercharger 400s, are capable of this 400 kilowatt output, which is very, very cool. It is a system that is very impressive. The design is not only powerful, being high powered with 400 kilowatts, but additionally, it is very quiet. The cable management as well is not too bulky, coming from a small person like me, and it contains a lot of details on the screen for those nerdy folks who like to see the charge curve and have all the information. I know that I love what EVgo already provides in terms of their information, so excited to see more of this from Alpitronic. Andrew Cornelia is the CEO of Mercedes-Benz Hypercharging. I spoke to him before on the podcast, have an interview with them. We were at their whole launch of the Mercedes-Benz charging network in Atlanta, Georgia at their headquarters. And that site was big, beautiful, has a lounge with AC and vending machines and Wi-Fi, and then a huge canopy over the chargers and even a pull-through for those Mercedes e-sprinters. Of course, they have partnered with Buc-ee's as well as a site host, and I look forward to seeing not only what other hardware they decide to try out, but what other site hosts they might decide to partner with. I mean, the opportunities are endless, and obviously Alpitronic did see a big opportunity to work with Mercedes-Benz here. Of course, the Mercedes-Benz network is called that, but it is open to all EVs. And that means that the chargers going into the future will not only have CCS, but also the NACS connectors, so that you can charge the J3400 standard. So you can charge any EV that's on the road, not necessarily CHAdeMO. Sorry, CHAdeMO. You're kind of getting the short end of the stick now as we continue to advance. Okay, I'm going to hush up and let Mike come onto the stage and take it away and tell us all about the hardware, the software, reliability, efficiency, building in America, coming to America, and what they see in the future, and why they decided to partner with Mercedes-Benz on this project to launch Hypercharger 400 DC fast charging hardware at scale in America. Hey, great. Mike Doucleff, CEO of Alpitronic Americas. It is great to have you on the Out of Spec podcast. I really appreciate you coming on. I first met you in real life. You happened to show up at a Circle K charger that y'all were kind of piloting sometime last year, the Hyper 400. Yeah, the Hypercharger 400 in South Carolina. But now we're here to talk about Mercedes. So anyways, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
You're welcome. Great to be here, Francie.
Great to have you here. You're now fully in America, as is Alpitronic. And, I've talked about Alpitronic a little bit. Kyle has. We've tested those chargers, and we'll get into that as well. But for starting with a broad view, Mike, could you give us an overview of Alpitronic, and especially as you have come into the North American market?
Yeah, sure. So Alpitronic, we are the European market leader in DC fast charging. We were founded in 2009 by 4 engineers in Bolzano, Italy. So Bolzano, Italy is this very beautiful corner in the top right of Italy, nestled in the mountains. It's in a valley. It's a 2-hour drive, a bit over 2-hour drive to Venice. And it's a region known for many things, agriculture. So there's a large apple production area, as well as some famous wines, but also on technology. And what's also unique about Bolzano is it's kind of very close to the Austrian border, not too far from the German border, but still Italy. So you have a bit of German and Germanic influence, along with Italian influence, of course. So what we like to say at Alpitronic is it's a place where German precision meets Italian flair. And I think that's probably a good way to think about, Alpitronic as a company in general, because we're very engineering focused when it comes to our Hypercharger, but we're also very focused on design. Design is very important to us. So power electronics really is in our DNA. We started off back in 2009 doing a lot of contract manufacturing, so building components for electric vehicles for automotive manufacturers. We also did a lot of power cycling for semiconductor manufacturing. So around 2016, we said, hey, let's start building something for ourselves instead of building it just for others, and create our own brand. So we leveraged really the knowledge from building components for electric vehicles, working in the electric vehicle industry, working with tier 1 automotive manufacturers, as well as all of the learnings we took from working with semiconductors and power cycling. So this is something very important to us. We've created the Hypercharger, but also created the power module inside of it. And this is something that's very important to us. It's our secret sauce. The power conversion is really what we are leveraging now with our Hypercharger. So since we first launched the Hypercharger in 2018, we've deployed over 50,000 level 3 DC charging ports worldwide. And we are a DC-FC hardware pure player. And we're proud to say that. That's our focus. That's our strategic focus. We're not doing L2 and L3. We're not claiming to be a software company. We are a level 3 DC-FC hardware pure player. Now, recently, we opened our office in the US. So our headquarters is here in North Carolina, in Charlotte. We entered the building end of last year, around November. Here we have 75,000 square feet of newly refurbished Italian flair office space. And we have space here for almost 300 people. We have a customer testing area where customers can come and test our chargers and actually plug them in and do interrupt tests and other things. We have an R&D lab, training center, service and repair shop, as well as all of the other functional positions you would have in any company. So everything is here in Charlotte, North Carolina, except for our manufacturing, which is based in Wisconsin.
Wow. Okay, so American built by America. When you start to think about NEVI, was that a big motivation in moving to the U.S.? I mean, how did y'all make the decision that it's time to move into this market?
Well, that was really our customers, quite frankly. Our customers, where we started our business in Europe, and a lot of our customers are global customers. So it was really a strong demand and request from our customers to say, hey, Alpitronic, we're doing business with you in Europe. We really like your quality, your reliability, your uptime. And that's something that we desperately want to have the same experience with you, but in the United States. So it was really our global customers that kind of gave us the nudge to come to the US. Of course, the US is the largest market for EV charging after China. So of course, there's obviously a big growth opportunity, but it really came down to our customer request asking us to come to the US market.
Okay, and you listened. Interesting. And speaking of customers, speaking of partners, of course, now your partnership with Mercedes Benz that is investing $1 billion into a North American charging network. And of course, we saw that they had ChargePoint, they had their headquarters launch the sites. They have other sites launch, but now they've partnered with you, Alpitronic, specifically for the Hypercharger 400 in their high power charging network. They also work with Buc-ee's as well as a site partner. But can you tell me more about this partnership? Why is this a significant collaboration for both Mercedes-Benz and Alpitronic from your point of view?
Well, first point, I think our companies share similar values, right? And similar values around performance, around reliability, and of course around design, right? So it's kind of a natural fit for us. We're also actually already existing partners in Europe. So as Mercedes-Benz is, seeking to uplift this customer experience, our shared focus on quality, I think, will set a new standard for the industry. In terms of the scope of the project, so we're deploying our Hypercharger 400 units at scale starting now, starting this quarter, Q3 of 2024. And as you mentioned, right, Mercedes is investing $1 billion to create this kind of robust North American charging network. Now the sites, and you mentioned Buc-ee's, so the sites will be announced very soon, and that's going to be a ramp up, of course, over time. So stay tuned on those site locations. I think what customers can expect is at these locations is reliable, high-speed charging up to 400 kilowatts of power, accommodating various EV types. So the sites aren't going to be limited to just Mercedes or just let's say CCS connectors. Now, in addition to that, to this fast, reliable charging, we're also aligned with Mercedes high power charging network philosophy to create this kind of anticipatory charging experience, meaning all the guesswork about the what, the how, the where to charge is taken out of the equation, and charging is simply about locating chargers near attractive amenities that can make charging a delightful experience.
That's what I would love, just every charging experience to be delightful, although it has gotten better over time, especially, we had a bit of a pitfall, I would say, in terms of our charging experience in the US. So we have been really eager to see what other hardware can come through to not only provide the DC fast charging speeds that we want, but also the reliability and the experience. So let's talk about the specifics of the Hypercharger 400. It's a pretty standout piece of technology, I would say. I had the pleasure of being at one to charge a Rivian and a Model Y at the site that you had in South Carolina, Rock Springs, I believe, where you're kind of testing them. And of course, the speed is notable, the all-in-one design, but also it was so quiet despite being so powerful. So could you walk us through a bit of its key features, specifications, the 400 kilowatt charging power, and maybe like the vehicles that really it can support?
Well, sure. I mean, that Hypercharger 400 is really our flagship product. And that flagship product is now available today, right? Is now available today in the US. So that's up to 400 kilowatts, as you said. And we're featuring all of the connectors needed in the US. So that's CCS1, that's NACS. You can have cooled cables, uncooled cables. We have an elegant cable management system, which if you look around the industry, our design has been attempted, let's say, to be copied, but I think our cable management system really gives that customer a kind of easy way to manage those cables, which occasionally can be a bit heavy, as well as a nice experience walking back the cable. Also, all of the other features around credit card terminals are of course available. Now, our charger is made in the USA, right? So that means it's fully compliant to this, alphabet soup of all of these US standards. So that's UL, okay, and we are UL certified by UL, right? There aren't many in the industry that are actually certified by UL, so certified by UL Labs. We have American Steel, so we have the BA, the NEVI, the CTEP, NTEP, ADA, right? Again, coming back to that alphabet soup of compliance. Now, the US market is big, right? And so some of the challenges are, first of all, geography, right? I mean, deploying chargers all over the US requires manufacturers to be ready with their service and support network to cover the big country in the case of having to do a truck roll. But there's also other challenges just besides the geography. We're in this kind of, transition period where Shadamo, connectors are kind of ramping down. J3400 connectors are ramping up. So you have this kind of game of connectors and trying to find the balance. So I think hardware manufacturers need to have this kind of ability to go with the industry and not have, customers making investments that they're going to regret, but having hardware that's flexible that can be changed over time as the industry changes. And I think another point here on these different connectors, something that's very concerning, is this plethora of adapters, right? They're coming available from CCS to NACS. And a lot of those are not necessarily UL certified. And for normal consumers who don't know things about amps and volts, can really get into trouble from a safety point of view. So that's something super concerning. At Alpitronic, we really don't like those adapters. That's why we're providing both CCS and NACS cable. Now, that's the HYC 400, and we're continuing to iterate on this technology. So 1 year ago, our power modules, coming back to our secret sauce, we migrated from the IGBT to silicon carbide. And what that did, it brought mainly, 3 large values. First one, we're able to increase the power density by 33%. That means in the same physical footprint or the same volume, we can have 33% more power coming out of electronics. So it means we don't have to change a cabinet. We don't have to have a bigger cabinet. We can just by engineering increase the output. The second one is around efficiency. So the efficiency of our power conversion today is around 98%. Now, if I look at the overall system, so the overall charger itself, and you include the cables and some loss there, it's more like 97.5. But nonetheless, 97.5 system, 98 on power conversion is industry leading. And the third one is something that you mentioned, which is we were able to lower our dB or decibel or lower the noise output from the charger. So even when you're hitting 400 kilowatts in one of our chargers, it doesn't sound like an airplane taking off. Right? It just sounds like there's a small fan going in the background. So there's really a good user experience from a noise point of view. Now, recently we announced some evolutions as well. So we announced the MCS, the megawatt charging standard. We announced that recently, that we're working on that, and we're running pilots right now with customers. So more to come there. I think also as more and more commercial vehicles come on the market, there's going to be different charging needs there. I don't think there's really going to be one winning architecture for that. I mean, is it going to be all in one? Is it going to be distributed? I think it's going to be both. What is the connector? Is it MCS? Is it CCS? Is it NACS? Well, yes, it's all. And I think that's going to continue to evolve over time. So I think, those architectures are going to be specific to use cases. And I think that trying to fit one into use case fit the other isn't going to be cost efficient over time. So much more to come in terms of our product launches in the US.
Interesting. Okay. And you're talking about these designs, of course, the outside, the inside, the fact that it's all in one. I can imagine there are some use cases that are best fit for this versus the dispersed kind that you were referencing. And then also, I'd love to talk about efficiency as well and how that relates to reliability, because like you were saying, maybe your customers are like, please bring this over into this market. We could improve perhaps. So can you tell me a bit more about the reliability as well as the efficiency and what folks can expect in terms of how you are going to maintain these chargers so that they know that they can show up at a Mercedes Benz charging spot and have a great session with a Hypercharger 400?
Sure. Well, I mentioned earlier that we have over 50,000 L3 DCFC ports deployed worldwide. So we actually have, what you don't see when you're out there charging, is we have our own back-end connection to every charger, every port that we have deployed. And that's separate from any charging management software that could be on top of it. And we use that backend connection to collect data. And today, we collect data on every single charging session on every single port we have deployed. And the database today has over 65 million charging sessions worth of data. And we're adding, on average, over 100,000 charging sessions, new charging sessions worth of data to that database per day. Okay. Now, that's a lot of data, right? Great. Now, what do we do with it? Right? We use the data for product improvement. I'll give an example. If there's an issue on the grid, we actually record what happened. What was the grid doing, X milliseconds before there was an incident or a fault or a problem. And then we can take that data back and put it into our grid simulator, simulate in the lab what happened in the field, and use that to say, hey, how can we improve our product so when the grid is behaving a bit bizarre, we don't necessarily have a fault or an issue, but we're able to kind of manage through that. So that's just one example of how we use the data. Another one, today, our remote fix rate, right, which is, what problems can we solve remotely with our backend connection without having to send, an expensive truck to a scene. Our remote fix rate today is around 2/3, or let's say 67%. So 67% of the issues that we see in the field, we can solve remotely. So that means in our 24/7 network operations center, without sending anyone to the site, we can go and fix these problems. And that's important, right? That's important for our customers because uptime is huge important everywhere. It's top of mind for our customers. It's top of mind for us. Now, in those cases, those 1/3 of the case where we're not able to fix things remotely, I'll give you another interesting stat. For every one of our chargers deployed, we only need to roll a truck for a break fix. Okay, so I'm excluding annual preventive maintenance, right? But for a break fix, meaning there's a problem, we only need to roll a truck once every 20 months. So that means you install a charger. On average, we don't need to visit that charger to do any sort of repair work for it once every 20 months. And that includes, repair work done to cables, right? Means, sometimes the users aren't so friendly with the cables and they can be damaged. There's vandalism and things. So including all of that on our 50,000 port deployment once every 20 months is all that's required from a break fix site visit.
That's pretty impressive. Of course, collecting the data is one thing, using it to make sure that you're delivering at the where the consumer interacts, and also where site hosts or partners like Mercedes are having this hardware and saying, yeah, you're going to have a great experience here. So of course there's high pressure, but to have those systems in place, I think collecting all that data is obviously notably significant, and the remote monitoring, but also balancing that with the hardware that you're installing to make sure that it is resilient. It's not only scalable, but easily worked with the modules and repaired if need be. And I'd love to, you did mention the cables really quick, so I'd love to talk about the liquid cooling as well, because I think, obviously this is a high powered charger. You're able to technically plug in two EVs that will receive 200 kilowatts and get that simultaneous charging. Of course, conditions vary, but that's a lot. That's a lot of a pull on a system. It's quiet, but can you tell me about the cables as well?
Yeah, sure. Maybe just I would step back for 1 minute. You mentioned something there that's very important about
Certainly.
a bit of modularity. So not only do we have access to the data, but that means for those 1/3 of break fix where we need to send someone remotely, we know exactly what happened, right? So that means we can make sure we're sending the technician with the right training, with the right parts to go into the field. And when we go into the field, we don't actually repair in the field. We swap components. So we swap components, we swap sub-assemblies. I mean, the chargers are really built both for manufacturing, but also for serviceability. So we know remotely already what exactly needs to be done. Is it a cable? Is it a power stack? Whatever. So that when the technician we send is trained properly and has the right equipment, so that when we do those truck rolls, they are as efficient as they can. And again, we don't repair in the field for a couple of reasons. One, again, coming back to reliability and uptime. So having repair in the field can take longer. So we say, no, let's change the component. But every time we make a change in the field, we bring back those components or sub-assemblies back to our service and repair center. Okay, here in the US, it's in Charlotte. And we analyze exactly what happens. And this is something very important to us, again, for product improvement, reliability, and efficiency. We want to know what happened. Is there a systemic issue? Do we have a problem? Do we need to change something? So that's why it's important for us to analyze. So back to your question on cables. So, cables today, we offer both cooled and uncooled cables up to 600 amp. So that's 1200 amps continuously we can be outputting from our chargers. And we have different requests from customers. Obviously today, you only have certain vehicles that can go up to certain amperages and voltages. So, our chargers can cover, a full 1,000-volt range. So we can charge any vehicle today at an efficient speed. And I think on the market today, there's a lot of discussion, frankly, on the market. Is it a cooled cable? Is it an uncooled cable? A lot of our customers are saying, well, actually most vehicles today don't need the cooled cables just because of the architecture on the voltage or the charge curves. But what our customers do like is really the usability, the ergonomics of the cooled cables. So they're much lighter, right? You have much less copper inside the cooled cables, so they're easier to hold. I mean, when you're pulling back a 400 amp, cable, even with our elegant cable management system, it's quite an effort sometimes. So I think the way the industry is looking at it is not so much about, hey, I need this 600 amp boost feature. I think they're more looking at it from an ergonomics point of view, at least today. Now tomorrow, as vehicles evolve and more vehicles are charging at higher currents, then I think the liquid cables will definitely be the standard.
Interesting. Yeah, of course, I'm not a very tall person, so or big. So I definitely sometimes have really had to maneuver around with cables. So I'm always interested to see not only the cable management systems, which can help a lot, but the actual technology within the cables design, and how that's going to make it easier and easier to just plug in and walk away. And speaking of that, plug and charge. I know that I read about that with Alpitronic in your units. Can you tell me a little bit more about what folks can begin to expect for plug and charge, where you can just plug in and walk away and your car's charging?
Yeah, well, that's the idea, right? That's exactly the idea. It's kind of the, I hate to use the comparison here, but the Tesla experience, right? Where you drive up, you plug in, you walk away, and you forget about it. And that's really where the industry needs to go. And that's a tricky one, right? When you're in a Tesla system, you're vertically integrated, right? So the car, the firmware on the car, the charging hardware, the communication software, you have the payment already, the user, right? So you have everything. It's really kind of the Apple environment or the closed system, vertically integrated environment, where you can, of course, offer a really great customer experience. Now, as you go to the more Android or Google environment, it brings other benefits, but also other challenges. And I think that's a challenge that we as an industry have to solve. And that's not the charger manufacturer to solve it. That's not the charge point operating software to solve it. That's not the OEM to solve it, but that's really the industry to solve. We all need to come and work together much more to bring this kind of plug and charge experience to the industry. And that's really where we need to go. We need to, have that experience where I drive up and I just don't need to think, right? I pull in, I plug in the cable, and I walk away, and I go do my thing, and I come back. And this is the experience where the industry needs to get, and it's possible. But I think it requires much, much more collaboration between those various, car manufacturers, software platforms, hardware platforms. We need to come together much better as an industry to make it happen. It'll get there. It's going to take time. It's going to be very painful. It'll get there. But I think you get there faster by more collaboration, frankly.
I completely agree. I absolutely advocate for collaboration on all points, and we see it pay off very much. And, this is an example of a collaboration here, which I'm interested to see what both, the Mercedes Benz North American Charging Network and Alpitronic learns in this collaboration. And considering the future, I know you have plans to expand your footprint, particularly in the U.S. market. And this partnership with Mercedes Benz fits into the plan. And I am excited to see what upcoming developments you have. Is there anything that you can speak to that has to either do with this partnership or just looking into the future for Alpitronic that you can give us some insight on?
Sure. I mean, well, look, again, first thing, we listen to our customers, right? And that's why we're launching in the U.S. And we know the U.S. market is different than Europe, right? I mean, we have, had quite a good success and a good feedback from our customers in Europe. But of course, in the U.S., the standards are different, the grid is different, vehicles are different. And we don't take that for granted, right? I mean, we spend a lot of time and a lot of hard work on the team side here on compliance, with codes and standards, testing, interoperability, really spending a lot of time to make sure that when our chargers are energized in the field, they work. We also know that first round of DCFC deployment in the US, it was not well received, right? So things like quality, reliability, uptime, are really paramount to succeed in the US. And I think as well on cost, right? I think that infrastructure costs need to come down and continue to come down. I think in the future, this kind of dollar per kilowatt cost point is really going to be the metric, right? And that'll be kind of the benchmark for future comparison. I don't think it's necessarily so much about cost per port anymore over time. As you start to have distributed architectures, MCS, different charging speeds, I think it's going to come down to really who is able to provide the lowest cost per kilowatt with the highest reliability. I think it's going to be the winning model. And frankly, those two metrics are very important for us. So we're going to continue to apply this kind of thinking and methodology as we expand our roadmap to bring things like MCS and multiple connectors, different site designs and layouts. So a lot more to come from Alpitronic for the US market.
I will definitely stay tuned, of course, and hope to see some of these more. I saw the one site live, but more and more of these and test them out and watch y'all grow, because I do think you have a really interesting piece of technology, a great approach. You have a proven track record in another market. Of course, you have to bring a little bit of a wider perspective to a new market, like you're saying, and being curious and constantly improving, because like you mentioned, we need a little bit of help. We didn't start super strong with the public fast charging infrastructure, although it's gotten so much better. I don't want to scare anyone away, but projects like this do make me excited to see where it's going. So I really appreciate your time, your insight, Mike, and sharing it with us. I think it's pretty fascinating to hear about what y'all are bringing to the EV charging industry in the US, and I'm sure that our audience is as well. Is there anything else you want to note to make sure that they take away from this conversation?
No, I think just that we're here. Alpitronic is now here in the U.S. market. We've invested in our headquarter building in Charlotte. We've made a massive investment in terms of manufacturing footprint. So it's not an experiment for us. We're not just renting an office for 5 or 10 people, but we are heavily invested in the U.S. market. We are heavily committed to the U.S. market, and we're here. So chargers, H/C 400s are available today for our customers. So appreciate your time, Francie, and looking forward to seeing all of you out there in the market.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, to our wonderful guest, Mike Doucleff, CEO of Alpitronic Americas. You are here. That's for real. And thank you for providing us with such a detailed look into your high-powered charging hardware and your partnership with Mercedes. Looking forward to it all and appreciate your time. Everyone, let us know what questions you might have about Alpitronic and their hardware. I'm sure we will talk about them more, especially as y'all get more and more sites live. Really looking forward to that. So thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of the Out of Spec podcast. Drive safe, stay charged. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.